Well, I had suggested one time that maybe we should do like an offshoot where we go to haunted places and sit around doing nothing all night as a group and film it. Like just waiting for something to happen.
A whole hour
of
nothing.
Us like hanging out in the hotel room.
Playing cards.
Yeah, and
right?
This is like the most haunted room in the hotel or whatever. And somebody responded, I think it was on the blog, and they said, what would you call it? Like, or they said, you know, this week's, or an hour in carbon monoxide poisoning or something. It was like a joke about why people see these things in their house. And she was just like, you know, this week in carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah, you guys might as well get in on it too.
Sometimes I think I'm in the wrong line of work, you know. It's like, oh well.
I don't know. I was starting to think maybe the Catholic Church was sponsoring those programs.
Well, I'll say I did a show on a viewer who wrote in about a ghost story. And after I did that, one of the things she kept saying was, if you saw what I saw, you would believe this. And after I did that show, I got slammed by viewer mail where people were writing to me saying, I had the weirdest experience. And they were giving these big breakdowns on these weird experiences. And then at the end, they would say, but I know I couldn't have seen what I saw, so I don't know what it was, but, you know, I know it wasn't a ghost, because there's no such thing. They were just like, I don't know what this is, but it's not, you know, it's probably just a trick of my brain. One guy said he stood and looked at his brother-in-law in the closet for like 5 minutes, standing there. He had woken up out of a sleep, which always makes me laugh. Anytime someone says I woke up, or I was just about to fall and go to bed, or, you know, I had just laid down for a nap, I mean, right there,
that's
you lost me.
Hypnagogic, yeah.
Yeah, so you got to at least be awake.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
at the bare minimum.
A lot, guys. I appreciate talking to you. I appreciate your answers.
Sure.
Hey, Jim, thanks for calling, man. Take care.
Bye.
Righto.
And Luca was holding.
Yeah, Luca's been holding a while, and thank you very much. Luca?
Luca from New York.
Hello, how are you doing, guys?
Thanks for waiting.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I love your show.
Thank you.
So what can we, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I'm an atheist, but I'm not particularly, you know, aggressive about it. But you know, I live in New York, and every once in a while, you know,
you live in New York and you're not aggressive? Come on, man.
Well, yeah, like, you know, people will come up to me and, you know, try to give me pamphlets and convert me and whatnot. And when they do that, they start the conversation. I feel, you know, I have the right to respond. And I have a couple of, you know, ways I try to convince them that God doesn't exist. And I'm wondering if you guys could tell me what you thought about these two arguments, and you know, if you could maybe help me like tweak them a little bit.
Bring it.
And if you had something else, an even better way to talk about it. So my first argument is the basic inconsistency of the notion that, on the one hand, God created us in His image and He loves us and we're all His children, but He sends 80% of every generation to eternal torture, just on the basis of some arbitrary book or whatever. But so it's just, you know, if you loved your child, you wouldn't hit him with a baseball bat because he didn't brush his teeth.
Right.
So it's like a fundamental inconsistency. It just doesn't make sense that He would do that.
Okay.
And then my other argument is like, let's put the case that it's 100% true that you know, it's God that faxed the facts of the Bible into the brains of the people that wrote it. It's divinely inspired, blah blah blah, and miracles are true and all that, right? So the fact remains that supposedly God is smarter than us. We have no way of, you know, understanding what His plan is and whatnot. So how do we know that God's plan is to write the Bible, which is making false claims about slavery being okay and rape being okay, for the purpose of testing whether we're smart enough to understand that those claims are false, and on that basis allow us into heaven if we manage to say, hold on, we should question everything because God gave us free will, and we should understand that the Bible is false and it's all a bunch of bullshit, and that's how we get into heaven.
Well, yeah, that's a fun sort of counter that I usually use when people bring up Pascal's wager, right? Okay. The whole, yeah, well, if you atheists are right, then I've lost nothing and we all just die. But if I'm right, then I get to go to heaven, you go to hell, so me.
Yeah, you don't know that.
Right, but and what I say is, well, hang on, how do you know that what God's really doing is He has allowed this religion of Christianity to flourish? He has the Bible out there. It is all a load of BS. And what He is really doing is He is gauging the human race to see just who is using this gift of reason that He has bestowed upon us well enough to see through all of that. And really what's going on in heaven is that that's where all the skeptics get to go. And all the believers get to go to hell for being, you know, suckers, right?
Exactly.
For swallowing all of this. How can they say that's not the case? But I don't know, I would say, and Tracy, I don't know, tell me if you agree with me, you're saying that these folks approach you?
Yeah, they're handing pamphlets on the subway.
Oh, right. Okay, so they're the
All over town,
pamphleteering.
you know, like,
Okay.
these people like share a prayer T-shirt and you know like all these real burn in hell. Oh yeah, they're all over the place. You know, trying to.
Yeah. Okay. So they're doing the phamphleteering thing in the subway stations. Oh, I got to go to New York now. Well, what I would do is I would take a slightly different approach.
Okay.
Which is that I would just hand them the pamphlet back and I would say, thanks very much for this, but I understand what you're trying to do. But what I would rather hear is you tell me, and don't reference this pamphlet or anything, why don't you tell me, this is the classic atheist experience question.
I agree.
What do you believe? Don't look at the pamphlet, what do you believe, and then why do you believe it? Explain what you believe, and then tell me why you believe it. And then try to make a case, a persuasive case, for why I should believe it too. You know, convince me that the reasons why you believe what you believe are good enough reasons for me. You know,
yeah, but
because a trap that atheists can often fall into when you're arguing with Christians and theists is that you end up bringing up all of these either doctrinal or points about, well, if God's really like this, then why doesn't he do this instead of that other thing?
And it's just a quagmire of presupposing God is already existing.
Yeah, and it leads into what we're talking about, our general subject of the show today, just sort of apologetics fail, where you're just giving them, because he's a made-up being in the first place, or because they have failed to establish that he is not just a made-up being, you're simply giving them a free ticket to just make stuff up in response to your questions. You know, well, why does God allow child rape? And then you get William Lane Craig's thing where, well, God, you know, as you said right here in one of your examples, he's beyond our understanding, right? God has reasons that we don't get because our puny human brains, which he created, so you would think he would have made them better, you know, and more functional. But apparently he made us he made us stupid so that we wouldn't understand why he does things that he does that don't make sense. And you're just giving them a ticket to make stuff up in response. So I would just, you know, put them on the spot. They've got the burden of proof, not you. Make them answer those questions.
Two things I tend to hit are, number one, what is it that you're defining as God? Because whatever you're going to claim about God, I need to be able to reference this thing so that I can verify that what you're saying is true. So whatever you say about God, I've got to be able to go over here and examine that God and say, I agree or don't agree with what you just said about it. Otherwise, you're telling me stuff about something I can't verify, and I have no way to know if what you've said is accurate or not. So unless I know what you're calling God, and it is something I can compare your claims to, I have no way. I mean, to me, that's the same as you might as well be making stuff up, because I have no reality to compare your claims to.
Right.
But number two is, if they do offer some, you probably won't get past that. But if you do get past a definition of God that you're willing to accept, at that point, you can't move into proofs such as an inspired Bible, because there's this reality that things that don't exist can't be the cause of other things. So that means that when somebody says, I accept the Bible as an inspired book that demonstrates God, the reality is, if there is no God, then that is not a book that is inspired by God. So first we need to establish whether or not there's a God. Then we can make a determination about whether or not that God would be responsible for writing this book. But if we don't know what God is and what God might do, we don't know if God would write a book or not. And you can't look at the book and say, well, it's obviously a book written by a God, because we don't know what a book written by a God would look like or how it would differ from a book written by people.
Right, exactly.
So
another thing I do sometimes when say, hey, do you believe in God? I say, no, I believe in Santa. Which is, you know, another version of the spaghetti monster argument. But, you know, like, because there's a book about Santa, there's, you know, a lore about that.
You can say Santa's you can meet Santa at the mall.
Well, there is a historic, I think, personage of Santa at some point.
Yeah, he's real, you know, historically, sure.
So,
wouldn't it be awesome if, like, some church for Christmas or something, like, you know how the malls have Santa, and then for Easter they have the Easter Bunny, and you can just, I mean, why don't churches just ever, for the fun of it, just have like some dude dressed up as Jesus, and you can go and little kids can sit on it,
back from the resurrection.
or just not even that, you know, just have kids sit on it,
take pictures. It would be pretty gruesome.
Yeah, well, see, they just don't want, they don't like that idolatry thing, I suppose.
Okay.
But
well, I hope
we're
we
being
helped,
silly
Luca.
Now.